As you can see, we are starting from a base coat of a dark gray. In my case, I am using Vallejo dark gray, but something like Etching gray just works as good. The reason why I'm using Vallejo instead of my usual Citadel is because I want a flatter finish. When you're painting NMM, a flatter finish is always better. And our first step is going to do all of the Damascus drawing using pale gray blue. You can use any pale grays. For example, Ulthuan gray is going to work fine. What you don't want is use the paint super thick. You want this to be quite thin down so the lines are transparent. This is the sort of consistency we are looking for. See, there you go. And now it's time to draw our Damascus pattern. I highly recommend you use a thin brush with a sharp tip. And the pattern you choose to do for your Damascus will vary depending on what you want to achieve, but a really cool one is this kind of concentric lines, concentric patterns. Try to do it as wobbly as possible. We can go back with our dark gray and fix any mistakes, so don't overstress too much. The most important thing is that we establish our initial lines that we can refine later and will refine later. Something like this. I'm going to go over and refine some of the lines that aren't well defined here in this middle section especially. And we finally going back to the dark gray to define those lines as good as possible so they are consistent and uniform. With our pattern now finished, it's time to, well, shade and highlight the blade as we would do any other non-metallic metal blade, but because we have the pattern underneath, we need to be very careful. We can't do just normal blending, we can't do layering, we have to do glazes. And that sadly implies we will have to glaze using very light colors. We're going to start with pale grey blue, the same color that we used, and that is another reason to not use Citadel colors. Citadel off-whites are notoriously hard to glaze with. I can probably do it, but I wouldn't recommend you try it if you can avoid it. So we're going to go with Vallejo, but again, if you want to use Citadel or Thuan Grey, it's going to be just fine. You need to thin this down a lot, and you need to have very little paint on your brush. Use some medium if you find it difficult, and well, we'll just have to do it. You can also use some retarder, that's also going to help out, especially with the lighter colors. You know, any help that you can get, do it. I'm going to choose to do a main highlight on this section of the blade because it's the one facing upwards into the light, and I'm going to leave all of this section dark. We need to do very minimal NMM highlighting because we want to preserve the pattern underneath as much as possible. And this is going to take a while, but if you are patient and you use very little paint, it's going to look awesome. Very important to leave this to fully dry before you attempt another layer. Better to be safe than sorry. You need to build this very, very slowly. When glazing with this sort of super pale colors, you know, it's better to take precautions and try to do it as best as you can. Just like that. Very, very carefully. As you can see, for all of you Patreons that are watching this without any cuts, I'm taking way more than usual to do consequent layers because I want to be sure that what I did there is fully dry. And also, as you may be able to see, I'm doing sort of a to highlight pattern on this side. I might also do another highlight here at the bottom. There you go, there, it looks really good. That will probably be the final glaze pass on the tip. I still need to do a couple of passes on the bottom. And on top of that, I'm also going to do an edge highlight with this same color. Again, I have my paint really thin down, so we can create some variation with more passes, just like that. I'm also going to do this on the dark side of the blade. Use the side of the brush whenever you can to make your life easier, but for the middle you will have to freehand it, especially in these old plastic molding blades. So the only way to go is just wing it. Again, the pattern makes this extremely difficult. But remember, your hand is way better at doing vertical lines than it is at doing horizontal lines. And my line is not in the center. Okay, yeah. Well, that will have to do. With the initial highlight done, I'm going to move into the shading just to, be providing a little bit more contrast and see where everything is going. And for this, I recommend you use some kind of ink or transparent paint. You can use contrast if you want. I'm going to use Express. Why? Because again, they dry flat, and that's what I want in this situation. But you can use contrast and then varnish, or you can use an ink, or you can use just normal black. I'm going to use Black Lotus because it has a slightly colder tone that I personally want in this situation. But if you just want a plain black, just use plain black. I'm going to thin it down just using water, because you can do that with Express, into a glaze consistency. This sort of consistency here. See, very, very fine. Again, very little paint on my brush. And I'm going to glaze this over the darker side. With this, we can fix some of our thicker middle line. Just like that. We can add some of it in this section as well. There you go. We are going to do several layers of this until we have our desired look. That is enough. As you saw, if you were a patron, that was like 2 or 3 layers. With this sort of thin application, it dries pretty quickly, and we can still see the pattern peeking through, which is exactly what we want. We're going to move now into the final highlight, which is going to be pure white. As always lately, I'm going to use my Pro Acryl white, but you can use any white you want. White ink would be great here, or a heavy body white, which dries slower, is also a great idea. Pro Acryl white is really good, so I'm happy with that. Again, thinning this down a lot. You see how thin that is. That's what we want, and we have to be very careful because we are glazing with pure white. Funny enough, we need to be less careful than in our previous layer because we already have a light color underneath, so it's not that difficult. We just want to add a shine, final shine of white. Into the flats. Just like that, reinforcing what we previously did. Also, don't forget to do the edge highlight, especially where it touches the main highlights, like that. I did a little bit of feathering there because I wasn't happy with the results. Again, we want some highlight, obviously. We don't want that much because we want the pattern to be the main protagonist here. I'm going to repeat the highlighting on the top. To emphasize the white there. Just like that. And I'm also going to do the edge highlight on the middle, especially here towards the top. And that, if you ask me, looks pretty good. I think I am actually going to do a final white highlight here at the base of the middle ridge. Don't be afraid to change the angle, twist and rotate your miniature to gain the best access possible. And there you go. That's it. Our Damascus pattern blade is finished.